Oh, it's me, Comic Book Nation, the only show that does it all for geek culture and the official podcast of comicbook.com. I am your host, Kofi Outlaw, and I am hunkered in the bunker. It is snowing heavily. Oh, my road is gone. Oh, well, the time it took me to set up for this show, my street has disappeared. We are getting snowed in over here in Nashville, Tennessee. And I'm not going to lie to you. It's early in the morning. There's snow everywhere. And like all I want to do is go back to sleep now. So instead, I'm going to host a show with the rest of my wonderful co-hosts. Matthew Aguilar is here. Janelle Wheeler's here.
Hi.
What's going on?
Very excited to experience baby's first snow day, but we're waiting until after the podcast.
Yay.
Oh, yeah.
Amazing.
Wow. I didn't even think about that. Yeah, that'll be a fun milestone. That's always fun.
Hopefully it's not too cold.
I mean, it's time. They got to learn.
Yeah.
So, it's also wild that we are piled under, like part of the country is piled under snow while another part of the country is on fire. So
yeah. So we're sending love. Yeah. It's really scary. We have friends there, and
it's just 2025. We're starting off wild. So thoughts not the sarcastic, but the actual thoughts and prayers for like all our friends in LA. All the animals, all the wildlands.
Leave water buckets out for wildlife.
Yeah. So it's crazy. But we are here to do some fun escapism from the bitter cold and the hellish heat. We are Comic Book Nation, and today we have a lot of fun stuff to talk about. We do all things geek culture, and we are going to take a rare dip, if you haven't seen the logo for this episode, into Cinema Nation. Golden Globes went down. The Oscars are taking shape. My other side hustle is as one of the Music City film critics of the Nashville-based Music City Film Critics. And so I watch a bunch of stuff behind me. I have still a bunch of screeners for everything from Amelia Perez to, I've seen it all. So we're going to talk about it because this isn't that show, but the Golden Globes happened, and we got to talk a little bit about the Golden Globes. There's some big things we got to see, talk about some snubs. We got to talk about, one in particular, but we'll get into all that. In addition to that, Creature Commandos season 1 has wrapped, so we're going to talk about that. WWE got Raw on Netflix, and it was something. So Matt has a lot to talk about there, and we got to get geeky and talk about what's going on in DC's Absolute Universe right now, plus a big piece of crazy news that is coming out of Marvel that has people all up in arms this week. So a lot to do. And that's not even, and gaming. We got to talk gaming / Marvel with the Marvel Rivals and more stuff in Matt's agenda today. So let's hop up top and do something we can all talk about together. Guys, how about that Creature Commandos finale and the show as a whole? What'd you think? Janelle Wheeler, Matt and I get to kind of know and process some of this DC stuff early over time.
Right.
So I'm super curious to hear what you thought of this as a finale. It is just a season finale, but and the show overall.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I did not know that this was the finale until this morning when I checked our show notes. So I was just watching it as another episode. It makes sense that it was a finale now that I think about it. Are we spoiling?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh yeah, it's fine.
I can't believe that we lost a major player on this team. I am honestly I'm so shocked. I kept thinking she'll come back to life for sure. She'll just kind of heal up. She's self-healing abilities or something like that. I'm curious. I wonder if we will somehow resurrect her. Do you guys know are there any is there buzzing or anything? No? Okay. I figure that you guys sometimes know these things.
We got a
Um,
bunch of aqua people, so we'll be fine. Like,
yeah. So
but we
that
got
was
one back. You know,
yeah.
it was gangland math. We
Yep.
lost one, we got one back. You know.
Yeah. Um, definitely just what a heck of a show, man. Between this and X-Men 97, I am just like shocked at how much I love animation. I'm like, what is wrong with me?
Yes.
I love some animated shows. It just if this is how James Gunn kicks off the new DC, like his DC projects and his vision, like we have a lot of good stuff ahead. Like I'm trying not to get my hopes up too much, but I'm so proud isn't the right word. I'm just pumped. I'm like really pumped. If this is what I have to go off of, all it's going to take is like one more really good, release or project, and I'm going to be like, okay, James Gunn knows all. Like he's crushing it. So
The Superman hits.
yeah,
We off to the races. Yeah, like I said, we just recently did our 2025 hype rankings. Go back and listen to that wonderful episode. But like I said, yeah, that Superman, I have as much anxiety as I do excitement because of how much just like riding on this whole thing. But Matt, what'd you think? Because you get to kind of things about some of this DC content early. So what have you been sitting on thinking about Creature Commandos, this ending episode, the show as a whole? Because you don't necessarily need to shoot. Because you're the one who keeps us honest. You don't need to shoot James Gunn bail. Like Janelle and I are more inclined to kind of like toss that man bail and get him out of jail.
So. Well, number one, I gotta shout out Zach G's One of Us comment that is brilliant. And yes, I'm so happy that Janelle is on the animation wagon. Finally, it took 7 seasons. But we did it. So happy. Between X-Men, she brought this up during the best of comics. It's kind of amazing between just X-Men in general, being an X-Men fan, and now animation. It's just like the sky's the limit. There's no ceiling on what we can accomplish on this show.
Listen, the skills we have given you will not increase your income, friend circle, or any of that. But
damn it.
But hey, you did it.
Yay! So that's fantastic. I think number one, it took a lot of it took a lot of brass. We'll go there to start off the DCU with a show like this, and with characters like this, all these deep pools. This is not necessarily what you would a lineup that you would think of when you're like, hey, let's introduce the universe through this and through this particular lens. And it's so the fact that number one, not only was the choice made to do that, but then to me anyway, aside from one just kind of meh episode, this thing killed from beginning to end. I mean, I really enjoyed this from beginning to end, outside of that one dud for me. And again, it wasn't a bad episode, it was just kind of meh. I think they really executed the vision, and I thought, look, when this happened, when I initially saw this happen, it's James Gunn, so I go into something going, he's gonna like break my heart in some way, whether that's a death, whether that's a maiming, whether that's whatever, like that. That's kind of something he's known for, right? In his films. So I expected something, but Nina,
if you go to see that, but when you go to see that kind of stuff, heartbreak feels good in a place like this.
It's I didn't expect Nina, but then I also, looking back on it, and that like had some time to process and stuff. It's like, yeah, it actually does make the most sense, because that's the character that it was that slow roll throughout the whole thing, and there was the conscience and stuff of that, and she really affected everybody, right? I mean, there's a reason that like GI Robot was worried about her, right? Like if you go back to those episodes, you see that she affected actually everybody on the show in some way, that like the core team anyway. And so she was the one. And so it kind of makes sense looking back on it. I thought they executed it really well. And I also like that. Look, I watched Law and Order, right? So I'm very much like, I'm okay with a tragic ending. It happens a lot in those type of things of where there's like it's not even a tragic and it's just a bad ending because of not everything works out. Things, the bow's not tied up at the end. Sometimes the bad guy gets away. It's those types of endings. And so to have this be where, yes, it's heartbreaking, but they do actually, they don't twist the knife so bad. They do bring it full circle in some other ways with the main villain, and like, okay, it wasn't all for not, like, there's enough. It's a good balance, I thought. So well executed. I'm very happy we're getting a season 2. I think the fact that, but I am curious because if you look at it, we've lost losing that character. It's going to be a very different show. So it'll be interesting to see who they kind of bring in to fill that lane, so to speak. But great show.
Yeah, no, I've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it as we've watched it back week to week after kind of binging through the whole thing while we were doing the screeners and whatnot. I think what I'm kind of most impressed by is that it seems like James Gunn is both working the business side, but also kind of working with an actual narrative. It's not just like Marvel where it's, Kevin Feige's like, okay, we're going to do a bunch of films. Then, end goal is we get all these stones, Thanos, Gauntlet, boom. It's like there's an actual narrative to this. Like, we've been pointing out in articles that this run of this arc of the DCU's first arc is called Gods and Monsters, right? And it's like you can see thematically from these first 2 projects that are coming already that they're setting up that thematic range. Like this one was obviously about, what is a quote unquote monster. All of these characters who are introduced as these prisoners, they're the worst of the worst, Weasel being the kind of poster child for that. He's a child killer. He's this scum. He's this brainless, beast. But as we watch his story, we learn Weasel's far from a monster. He's actually kind of compassionate, kind of heroic, all this stuff. So by the end of it, that's kind of wrapped up well in this finale because that's the whole idea. It's like, who is a monster? The pretty princess turns out to be, the biggest monster in the bunch. People who are supposed to be monsters, like the bride, turn out to have heart. The whole thing is how the world treats somebody like Nina, who's compassionate and lovely and just wants to be, free and in the world and all that. Like, the world is a monster. Like, there's actual themes running here. And it's already setting up something about what we could see when this all kind of culminates. And it's already kind of about, worldview, right? Like, how do people perceive this or that or the other thing that's out there? So what do people do when somebody like Superman is this godly figure? What do you people like when there are these monstrous figures? What does it all mean? And all of that. So I'm digging that part of it. It seems like there is a story being told here. And so I'm kind of interested to see if we can keep that up as we're going along through these projects and keeping that kind of thematic consistency. And then, like, where does it all lead? So, yeah.
Well said.
Yeah. Creature Commandos. And, if that's too highbrow for you, phosphorus will melt somebody's face off. And,
well, that's what the show does really well, right? It balances that. Because, you have all these themes and you have depth. And then you have, people stomping on people's faces. And you
Frankenstein being a weirdo.
You have all that. Like, it does a very good job of balancing those worlds and giving everybody something. So I think and even the firefights of the early episodes, right? And the battles and stuff, the one-on-one fights, like there's a lot of that here. So yeah, it's
we all
it
know
did
what
really well.
you
Good
liked.
opening salvo, man.
We know what you liked about this. You liked
Oh.
seeing pretty boy Flag laid up in a hospital, wheezing his
I
one
don't like
line.
that character. I wasn't bummed.
You know.
I'll put it that way. I wasn't upset that he was the one sitting over there like, yeah, okay, get the. I mean, look, there's redeeming parts of every character. I'll put that out there, but he was not my favorite, so I'm okay with that. You know, if I could swap lives, can I swap his for Nina's? It's like easy, you know what I mean? So
Wow.
easy choice, easy choice.
You want to take out 2 flags. That's like genocide at this point. You're just taking out a whole family. You want all flags dead, huh? Yeah. Let's just move on. But yeah, and I like what they set up for season 2. I like the bride kind of being in center stage and doing all that. And yeah, I like Frankenstein, that like Eric Frankenstein, that whenever he's on screen, you're just so scared for everybody who's around him. Like every poor
Yeah, he
person
does have a Homelander effect in a different way, but very much like that unpredictable force of nature that's just like people could die in 5 seconds if you just turn around and come back. Like something will have drastically changed. Like he's that kind of force, which is good. And Harbor's great. So I do hope, I saw in the comments a question of Harbor coming back for the role. I do hope that like the cast stays the same and we get the people back, because like
at one
they
point
did
it
such
was
a great
said that was the plan. I know, but that's like at one point. I'm sorry, I have like a mini migraine. Yeah, it is the plan at one point to bring all these people to live action, and we know that's happening already with Frank Grillo as Rick Flag Sr., but that's an easy one. It's like it's a little bit harder to get like Indira Varma in a bunch of makeup and stuff playing the bride. I mean, it could easily be done. You know, she could do anything, but like again, in Harbor, same thing. It's like you can see from the character designs that it's possible for each of these actors to
I can't
step
wait for
in
the bride
and
to
that.
be in live action. Like when that trailer first hit, and I was like, the bride's gonna be the runaway favorite. And like you see all these people talking about the bride. And if you had asked me that in 2022, of like, oh, 2025, people are gonna be talking about the bride in DC and like loving that character, I would have been like, really? Wow, that's awesome. But like I would not have expected that. So it's great. I'm glad that character's getting her flowers.
All right. Janelle, any party thoughts before we get out of here? Everybody's going for a coffee sip. Me too.
Just really excited about what's in store, and just really impressed so far overall. So yes, let's go.
More Creature Commandos content is what I
More
believe.
content.
She is saying.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. All right.
It
Well,
needs to be the Janelle shirt, by the way. It
Yeah.
needs to have more,
I have something in the works.
and then content on one side, and then the space where you can like erase marker, and then you can just fill in whatever that is. So, like more Creature Commandos content,
I love
Skeleton Crew content. You just fill it in. Really.
That's awesome. I love that.
all right. So moving on to next thing in news. Marvel has some people up in arms for what should be, to me, the most kind of obvious thing you ever saw coming down the pike, which is that there are rumors from Jeff Snyder, the In-Schneider, that that Marvel is kind of quietly looking to recast T'Challa Black Panther, and that they're going to possibly use the kind of on-ramp of these multiverse saga finale films, Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, to then, reboot when we get our eventual reconstituted MCU. We'll have it with a different T'Challa, which there were always going to be two ways this either played out, right? Like either we were getting some kind of time jump or age up on young T'Challa, kid we met at the end of Wakanda Forever, or we were going to get a multiverse T'Challa, which they've been soft rolling out for all of What If, practically. And we would get that as kind of the new T'Challa for our universe when this whole Secret Wars thing was done. So this has become mainly a debate about, like, is it disrespectful to recast after the death of Chadwick Boseman in 2020? Number one. Number two, is it disrespectful to the kind of story that Wakanda Forever told to not pick up the thread of T'Challa's son and go with that, which is what there are a lot of fans now arguing. So I'm kind of split myself in that question. I think it's crazy to pigeonhole any character as like one actor. I don't think Chadwick Boseman would want to say, hey, this iconic black character, I want to be the only black actor to ever play this, and it should only live and die with me because that's how we're rolling. I don't think that would be his statement. I can't speak for him, but I feel, just based on what he said in the past, that he would want Black Panther to stay an iconic character that is on film, for generations. So I think that you have to recast at some point. I think the multiverse has, in some kind of Secret Wars or Doom's, Secret War scenario was always the classiest way to do it. Like organically, quote unquote, as organic as a comic book plot ever is. But I think that's always been the vision, because we want to see it'd be weirder in a multiverse story and film in a culminating chapter where all these different characters are come together to just be like, well, we couldn't get, because of special rules, T'Challa can't show up in this. Like, we can't, that doesn't make any sense. So we kind of almost have to. Now, I do think that whatever happens in Black Panther 3, you got to address the kid and T'Challa's son. I think it would be an interesting story to have, what happens to a kingdom when you have this displaced version who's not really your T'Challa, but like is now here and has to meet this son he didn't even necessarily have. And the son has to meet the dad that's not really his, but it's kind of is his dad. Like, you can do a story with that, right? Like, we can do something with that, but you got to address it. So, so I'm split. But how about you, Matt? What do you think?
So's the chat. It's so funny seeing it play out live of like it's a hard look. This is not an easy thing to navigate, and I feel like I can completely understand both sides. I totally understand recasting. I do think All in the Game brings up a good point of at one time that seemed undoable because of the just people, like fans really kind of rallied around the fact of keeping Boseman's version of T'Challa separate and unmessed with. And 5 years later, that's different. It's a little bit more okay. It's kind of been memorialized, and it's this thing, and we've seen other things move. Okay, we could probably recast it. I do think there is some sentiment. I agree with that there's some sentiment there that now it would be probably a different discussion. It's still going to provoke a lot of different opinions, but you can actually have the discussion now. You couldn't when it originally happened. You couldn't with Black Panther 2. There was no way that was happening, and I understood why. Like, I totally got it. So now that you can have that discussion, to me, it's like I would totally be fine with it, because I understand that like these things happen. Iconic roles are played by human beings, and human beings pass away tragically. And so you can't, I understand not, keeping that role to like just one person playing it. People want that legacy to continue on. It's an important character for a lot of people. And so I understand the want to do that. But now that we're ready to have the discussion, some things have been put in motion. Introducing the sun has been put in motion. You've already put these other things in. So to me, now it would feel weird to then pivot course and go, okay, well, now we're going to ignore the sun and that importance and what that means now, because that moment and everything really resonated with people. So
yeah,
now it feels weird. If it had been like kind of left alone and we hadn't done anything with it, and then now we're at this point and we have this discussion of recasting, I would feel differently about it. I'd probably be like, okay, I understand it. But now that we've introduced these elements in, to me, it would feel odd to then just bring in multiversal T'Challa, looks different, and do that whole thing. Like the time for that was years ago. Before Black Panther 2, before Wakanda Forever, like all that was the time for that. Now that it's passed and we've introduced the sun, it would feel odd to kind of go back on that, because now there's meaning here. No, let's figure out a way. This is comics at the end of the day. You can figure out anything. We were just talking about Creature Commandos. If they want Nina back, guess what? They can get Nina back. There's Lazarus pits. There's all kinds of random crap out there that they can figure it out. This is comic books, people, right?
Justice for Nina.
We can do it. So if they want to age up the sun, it's been done. It was literally done late last year in Spider-Woman. They aged up her son and this whole Hydra plot, and it's a whole storyline. It happens. You can figure it out and make that the centerpiece. And now there's meaning behind your recasting it, because it's not really a recasting. It's just continuing with a character that means something to the original character. It's a legacy. It would feel odd for them to pivot now. I understand it. And if they do recast, I wouldn't be necessarily all 100% against it. But now it's just, why not just continue with the sun? You have it there and it means something. Like, just roll with it and move there. That's kind of how I feel. But I get the conflict, because like we're seeing it play out in the comments. Like, it's not an easy subject.
Nope. Janelle, how do you feel?
Oh God, this is hard. This is really hard for me. I think both of you kind of summed it up perfectly, and my feelings are very similar in that, yes, if they were going to do the multiversal thing, like, it should have happened already. I'm kind of gonna, honestly, like, this is one of those things where I just feel like I'm very sensitive to this. Obviously, I just absolutely adored Chadwick Boseman, and it's hard for me to I'm so glad that I'm not the person calling the shots, is what I'm trying to say. I'm glad that this responsibility is not on me, because it's tough. Like, it's really hard just as a fan for me.
Secondhand anxiety for the person making the choices.
Yeah. So I guess I don't know. I feel like I'm just going to trust the process. And obviously you guys said, you kind of summed it up perfectly. I think the sun is pretty much the only way we could go. That's just with what's presented. I don't know what they're cooking and trying to do, but like, that is the most logical direction so far. So, yeah.
But wouldn't it be cool later if you go with the sun, right? And you figure out a way to like make that work and bring all the timelines to where like he can appear alongside everybody and do all that. And then literally the next phase, you figure out a way to bring in a multiversal version of T'Challa, like Kofi was mentioning, right? That father-son thing, you can run with a whole phase on that for that side of the universe, right? Like, now he's dealing with his father. Now you've recasted T'Challa, very old man Logan, bring him into the main world, and you're dealing with all that complexity, and then he just sticks around. Now you have the character back. You can do other stuff with the character, but it doesn't also shortchange the T'Challa's son and that whole storyline. I feel like there's a world where you can have both.
Mm-hmm.
It's just going to take some patience and some time, which of course we all know we have very little of when it comes to the stuff. So
well, and it just takes so long to complete a project. So like from the time you make the decision and you have this vision to like completion and actually being out there for everyone to experience, it's a lot. It's years.
Right.
And so it's already been years, and it's just kind of like, what I don't know. That's just tough. It's tricky.
Yep, we don't have to make the decision.
Thank God.
And whatever decision is made, this is them internets, and people are going to be upset for one reason or another, or both.
Mm-hmm.
Or be like, why should I care at all?
Yes.
The huge. All right, we're going to take a break. And when we come back, we are going to talk about Skeleton Crew. We're going to do a little Cinema Nation. And then we're going to get into some deep geek stuff. Stay tuned. All right, Skeleton Crew.
Skeleton Crew.
We're almost at the end, and we've gotten to the secret of Atten. And how'd you guys feel about it?
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited about the show. This is my one show week to week that I am just like, okay, I'm going to save this for when I get like a few minutes to myself and I can actually watch it on like a big screen and with the volume going and not like my headphones in. I love the show. Gosh, it's just they've done such a great job. Obviously like reuniting with their family and seeing kind of these kids back home. I'm so excited to see how this series, or I guess this season, I guess, are we getting a season 2? I would imagine.
We haven't heard.
Oh, okay. Well, I feel like we have to get a season 2, but they could easily wrap this up. Like they could easily in this next episode finish out the story. They had their adventure, it comes full circle, they get home, and then like obviously they have to figure out how they're going to like defend at Atten or whatever with their parents. So like they could tie a bow on it and call it a day, but I really 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 hope that they give us a season 2 because I just love these kids. And it's just been such a fun adventure. I wonder how they're going to get back out to adventure again if there is a season 2. But because it was all just kind of like a little mistake. But yeah, I'm very, very happy. I'm very happy. Could Skeleton Crew lead into a Mando Grogu movie? I mean, I don't think is it even in the same time?
Yeah, they're happening in the same time. Yeah,
Okay.
This is during Skeleton Crew is
Thank
happening
God
during.
We have our Star Wars expert in here.
Yeah, no, there's a pirate guy one of the pirates that they fight in the beginning of Mando season 3 is part of that crew that Jod is part of. So he's like the little weird connective thread between the two shows.
Okay.
Right now, there's not any speculation about a connection to the Grogu movie because that's already kind of been in motion.
Mm-hmm.
But there is speculation that these characters and Atten will factor into the New Republic event film that Dave Filoni is doing. And that these characters could show up again there and be part of that film. And when you see kind of the reveal of this penultimate episode, that begins to make more sense why. Like, we're going to talk full spoilers, obviously, about Skeleton Crew. It's been a couple days. But because this planet is essentially like a massive vault of, Republic credits or Imperial credits or whatever it is, um, it's incredibly valuable. And so, anybody who gets that can sway or build themselves an armada, do all kinds of stuff. So, like, I'm wondering how this connects in the timeline to, like, the rise of the First Order, which will happen decades later. All of this stuff. Like, this money is going to be kind of pivotal and important in that whole thing, especially to like Imperial remnants or to somebody like Thrawn. You know what I mean? So I'm kind of curious about that. It wasn't the mystery necessarily that we were kind of deep diving into, but that's us doing that. It seems like the planet is essentially an accountant training center. Like that's basically what they do, is to kind of tally and inventory and keep track of all this money and handle it. So yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see, the larger picture of how this fits in. But as for what this episode did, it was, I mean, really for me, this was like the Jude Law show, this episode. Like this was, we knew that Jod would have a heel turn at some point.
This, Matt got a helmet.
Yeah, Matt got a helmet back in there on him. Matt's coming up on the helmets.
I was like, as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh my God, Matt's loving this.
Zach G asked, do you think that the Cinder, the ship, is made of Beskar? Maybe. That'd be kind of crazy connective thread as well. So yeah, but this episode with Jod and kind of turning heel and seeing how much of a heel he really is was really well done. Jude Law's fantastic in this. People have been speculating about him and the lightsaber and the Jedi. I wrote a piece and I stand by it that, like, I think from his physical acting, I don't think Jod's ever had any lightsaber training. I don't think he's ever been anything close to a Jedi. I think that's all BS. People are speculating about whether he can even use the Force or if he has some kind of magnetic device, because everything he does is with metals. Like, he manipulates metals and does all that stuff. So whatever the case may be, I kind of hope he is a Force user. And that was like the point of my piece. Like, I really do, because if he is a Force user, like, this would low key be a way of kind of proving The Last Jedi right. Like,
yeah,
first very charismatic, kind of fun, Force using non-Jedi character, which was basically what that film was saying. We don't need to follow just the Skywalkers as these like chosen ones. Is like, there's a lot of ways to take the mysticism of this universe and mix it in and make it fun. And so I hope he turns out to be just a kind of like rogue Force user who's just like, yeah, I never joined the Jedi. I became a pirate. Like, that's what I did. And so, yeah, it's been surprising how much fun. Nobody, out of everything we saw in those Star Wars presentations, like back when, this is the one our eyes skipped over the most. We're just like, like, okay. Cool.
Yeah.
And it's turned out to be kind of reconstituting some of the fun in Star Wars that we've been missing. So it's surprising. I hope they stick the landing. I hope, because we still do have some of these, and this has been, I think, the poison in a formula for these Star Wars shows, that we still try to do this lost like mystery thing all the time. Like, we just have to so now we're like, who is the supervisor, and all of that. Like, I hope we don't do some big kind of tie-in reveal and it's like, hello, Supervisor Supervisor Gideon or something, something dumb. Like, I hope it's just a story.
Like, you hope we don't Palpatine it?
Yeah. Yeah, I hope it's just a story that we wrap up in. I don't necessarily need a second season, but that is a big question about these Star Wars shows. Like, which ones are we actually telling, like, actual TV shows with longevity and multiple seasons and things like that, or not? But yeah, if they just wrap this up in this next episode as a just good story, like I'll be like, oh wow, Star Wars did something amazing. So there we go.
Yeah, well said.
I mean, I do need to see later on. I need other Star Wars projects to be like somehow Neil returned.
Yeah, I know. I do need.
Hi.
I need like Neil merch. Like let's go, Star Wars machine. All right, so we saw what you did with Grogu. I need some Neil merch. Okay, yeah. Actually, I just need Skeleton Crew merch in general. There's like nothing.
Yeah.
Like nothing out there. And maybe this.
We know you want that
too.
helmet.
Yeah.
I mean, I do. And talk about creating a character that, like, I mean, Jude Law knocked that out of the park, man. Like, I mean, as long as he doesn't, like die by the end of this or something, how are people not going to want him back?
Yeah.
In some form. Like, he's such a cool character. So, and especially with the bringing those, you don't have to be a Jedi to use the Force things to life. Like, this is, the personification of what that idea can be, the characters that you can create with it. I want more of this. I'm very excited. I hope we get a season 2, because this is a show that, with its foundation, you can have multiple seasons. And as long as you have this some kind of main thread throughout, the sense of adventure can carry a lot, and just these characters interacting with each other. So I think, I hope we get a second season. It's been so fun. This show is great. And I agree with you. I think I was right there with Kofi of like, I don't know what to think of Skeleton Crew when it was first teased. And a lot of people glazed over on that. There was a lot of other stuff coming. And, there's a reason we talked about Acolyte for a long time coming in and just ignored Skeleton Crew till it released. A lot of people did that. And so I think it snuck up on a lot of people. So I hope we get more stuff, but I need Neil merch like pronto.
Oh my god. All right, we will be back next week for the finale of Skeleton Crew. All right, let me take a detour into Cinema Nation. So, Golden Globes happened. Oh man. Yo, first of all, let's talk about something we can all talk about. Our girl Kristen Milioti got robbed. No shade at Jodie Foster. I mean, I like True Detective Night Country, but come on, bro. Like, what? That was crazy. That was insane. Here's what I'll say about the rest of the films. Yeah, the Hollywood Foreign Press is different than, the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, blah blah blah, the Oscars. So I'm not surprised that they went with some of the bigger picks that they went with, like The Brutalist, which, I mean, if you want a depressing 3-hour movie about an architect with some pretty shocking turns in it, like, sure. Yeah, you could do that, but coming to America and having the American industrialists ruin your life and do all that, like, I get why the Hollywood Foreign Press love that, but yeah, I'm not banking on that doing nearly as well as the Oscars. I'm still keeping my eyes, ironically, on things like Dune 2. Yeah, I think Dune 2 is still going to play very big at the Oscars, more so than we saw at the Golden Globes, which, I'm actually fingers crossed for. I want to see big blockbuster cinema get kind of like recognized for what it did. And I think it says something that Dune is still having the staying power after coming out like last March, April. Like, oh yeah, it was crazy long ago. I'm sorry, Zach G. I am not slandering any architects. That part of the movie, that part of The Brutalist is actually good. The things that Adrian Brody's character designs and like the rooms and stuff, that's actually a really good part of the movie. It's just, if you want to sit through it and see, like, you'll see what I mean, man. That movie takes some crazy turns. It's, yeah, it gets brutal in some parts in ways you're just like, what has this movie become? Yeah, I think I texted somebody. I was like, Funny enough, the whole theme of the Oscar race movies outside of like Dune was Diddy Party. That was like the theme of this year's Oscars movies, because every one of these movies has some freaky stuff that just kind of like pops off randomly. You mean you go to something like Baby Girl and you expect it. I mean, that's what we're paying, to see in that, which, fantastic film. Nicole Kidman, hats off to Nicole Kidman for decades of awesome, cinematic, erotic thrillers. I don't know if you call them that. Like, what do you call them? Dramas? Yeah, we'll call them dramas. But yeah, she should definitely be up for, a Best Actress, and, talking about that. I think in America, you'll see Nickel Boys get a lot more love, which is one of the craziest movies I've ever seen. And really talk about, I don't want to use the word depressing. We always use that around Oscars time, but I mean, hard hitting movie, Nickel Boys, which is a film about real schools in Janelle's thing in Florida. These kind of correctional schools for boys that were open, but like during kind of like segregation times. And it's about two young kind of black kids that end up in it, but it's told first person. It's like a crazy Terrence Malick type situation. So like the whole entire movie is told literally through their eyes. And it's crazy good. Like the way it's filmed, and you think that kind of dynamic would get old, but it doesn't. And like kind of what it does for kind of like putting you in this environment, it's nuts. And it's like, yeah, it's one of the best films I've seen, but like so hard hitting and like haunting and kind of like crazy. Hamish Linklater is in it and is like terrifying. It's a great film. Yeah. I mean, we don't have to belabor the point. I feel like people only care about like a couple of these movies anyway. But yeah, my only point was to come on and say we're going to be seeing something a little different coming down the pike for the Oscars. I also shouts out to Colin Farrell. I feel real justified in that we kind of picked that out. Shout out to Penguin. Shout out to Shogun. Our top two, like my top two. I'm just saying, guys, they missed the Vince Staples show, but like my other top two TV picks were big winners this year. So, I'm just saying. Yeah, and Nosferatu is also something I think we'll hear a lot more about at the Oscars as opposed to the Golden Globes, because I think that's picking up steam. It's earning a good clip of money for just an independent horror film, and everybody I talked to that's seen it is just like, yeah, I mean, that should be up for Best Director and Best Film for sure because of the way that's shot. And even Lily Rose Depp, I'll be interested to see if she gets the nomination. So we can see some horror and some blockbuster.
Did it make the cutoff for that stuff?
For Oscars consideration? Oh yeah,
and all that.
Oh yeah, they don't mess up. Anything released on Christmas Day is basically like, hi, I'm here for Oscar considerations.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. Anything between Thanksgiving and New Year's is basically we want to get an Oscar or a Golden Globe. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, anybody have any thoughts on this? Anything on the Golden Globes?
I mean, the Golden Globes, like I will say, I'm usually pretty bored. And this was really, really well done. Like, shout out to Nikki Glaser. Like, Glaser.
Nikki Glaser killed it.
She, that's my favorite hosting I've ever seen. She had this finesse of like saying, like, kind of knocking on everyone, but not knocking them down. Like, her comedy was like funny and like easy to digest, and all these egomaniac actors weren't pissed at her, and like it was so comfortable. Like, it wasn't, when you watch some hosts and they're saying some stuff and you're like, oh my god, I'm so uncomfortable because like this person's about to get slapped.
Ricky Gervais.
Yeah. Yeah. So like she did so great. And then I will say, even our like everyone who was giving out the awards, there were some really great moments there too. Like sometimes those are super awkward or weird, or the person just sucks at reading a prompter, or there's no, the chemistry between two people presenting. Like most of the presenting was really well done and written well. So also shout outs to the writers then for the show. And then also and the winners, like the speeches were beautiful.
Yeah.
It was a really good show.
Very entertaining. I
Yeah.
agree. I'm typically I tune out on the Golden Globes a lot.
So do I.
Like, I pay attention to the Oscars. I pay attention to the Emmys. I pay attention to those. But like Golden Globes typically kind of, I was just like, I read the winners at the end of the day, right?
Yeah.
Or whatever. Like I typically do that. Nikki killed that. The Adam Sandler bit had me. That was great. Timothy Chalamet was a very good sport. She had some fun with Timothy throughout the show. But also the Judon Foster brings up the "Hey Dwayne," which is Vin Diesel. Talk about, if someone can make it awkward, Vin's gonna do it.
Yeah.
Just had to do it.
Yep.
But it got people talking, and props, man, because people were
We
talking
like,
about that moment.
Dwayne, you gonna Will Smith this? You gonna Will Smith this? Keep my name out, Joe. Ow. Yeah. People were, yes, not to be the cynical guy in the room, but it was also just pointed out that it was almost like there was a general kind of memo sent around Hollywood that right now we're going to chill. Like, we're going to chill on the controversy. We're going to chill on like political things. We're just going to chill on all of that, because there was none of that in any of these speeches, except a couple coded little references from people at the end of their speeches, but nothing controversial, nothing political. Like, everybody was just like, let's just chill and have a good time tonight. And nothing too serious about any horrible subjects in Hollywood. Like, we just kept it light, kept it fun, and it seemed to work out for everybody. So maybe we need some more of that old Hollywood stuff in certain respects. Just like, let's not get too serious. Like, keep this thing fun. This is a show about, like Janelle said, a bunch of egomaniacal people licking each other. So, like, let's just keep it light and keep it fluffy and get out and let us watch. Let us watch all the pretty people, fluffing each other's feathers and man, let me go to bed. Yep. So, but there were some good bits. There were some good funny things that happened, and all right, that's the end of Cinema Nation. Let's get back to the geek. Let's get to the deep geek. All right, let's talk comics.
It's Kofi's favorite book, Absolute Batman.
I just choose winners. What can I say? What can I say?
By the way,
look at this podcast.
We didn't get to actually talk because there was so much to get to during the preview. We didn't actually get to talk about Absolute Superman. So I will add that at the end of okay. We'll hit that right after, because we didn't actually get to talk about it last time.
Well, we can fold it in because it's a good companion piece to this issue, and
we should just talk about it right now.
Yeah. So the latest issues of Absolute Batman and Absolute Superman have both kind of been heavy in looking back into the past and looking at parental connection, and how these versions of Clark Kent or Kal-El rather and Bruce Wayne, what kind of relationships they had with their parents, and kind of what was the moment of drastic change in their lives. And I'm just, since it's just fresh in my mind, Scott Snyder's like The Zoo Part 4 was one of the better comics I think I'll read all year for a single issue, in terms of just telling, again, like a very complete story, but embedded within this growing story of this new Batman. And we're going to talk full spoilers, but just learning that this crazy costume that we've all been looking at, like what is going on, like, with symbiote Batman, like doing all this crazy stuff, and learning that there's this deep, deep kind of backstory to the costume and its abilities, and Bruce and what this version of Bruce is like and has been like since a kid, and how it's related to all those scenes in the zoo, in the mass shooting we saw. It was heartbreaking. Like it was really, really well done drama. And by the end, you get that Scott Snyder has done what he understood the assignment, and he nailed it, which is, the core of Batman is still there. Bruce's anger and his hurt and his guilt, in this case, over losing his parent. But the circumstances are very different, and the reaction is very different, right? Like, he's still, like, his analysis in what even the bat means to him, because we all know the old lore of like being in a big manor by yourself in a bat, or crashing through the window, and you're like, wow, that's scary. And that worked in a Silver Age setting, I'm sure. But yeah, in a modern age, like, kind of really everything we know from science and stuff, like what a bat is, what it can do, what its core nature is, which is adaptability and survivability, mastering environment, like, all of that. And having that feed into this version of Batman is, man, I did a whole dissertation right there, but you get what I'm saying. It's really well done. And this version of Batman is highly interesting because, again, still the core elements, the methodical nature, the analytical strategist nature, the fighting combat strategist nature, like all of that's there, but expressed in completely different ways. And it's all feeding into this idea of this guy is an engineer. This Bruce Wayne is an actual engineer. He makes plans, blueprints, he maps it out, he figures it out, and he can make all kinds of crazy gadgetry, which I know Matt was really hyped about. That was Matt's big takeaway from this issue, was that mini Batmobile. That mini.
Well, I don't know, man. The Bat Thumb was pretty right there too. What a great name, by the way. That's a fantastic name. Way to go, Scott Snyder. You made a little tiny explosive Batmobile, and yet you also you named something that is incredibly deadly, the Bat Thumb. so fantastic. Because I want to actually jump into something Kofi was saying, but about the engineer part, because that was actually my favorite part of the issue, was that there's a whole conversation that ties everything together between him and his dad. And it's a project, school project. He's building a bridge. And that, with everything else that's happening, because we have like a gang fight at the beginning, and then we have other stuff that's happening towards the end. But that conversation was like the most compelling thing. I was just riveted from beginning to end, seeing Bruce like go through all of these different versions of this bridge and what the bridge actually means to the people it is designed for, and going in and implementing that and changing it and changing his approach, and seeing that play out over the course of this conversation. And then also seeing what he then built. Like, it is the coolest origin story for a suit in a minute. Like the fact that with all of that's tying in, and you see how this big, beefy Batman, you see why he got so big. You see why he put on all that muscle. You see why he put on the armor. And it displays it so well. And it's all through a conversation. I just thought that was impeccably done. And all of that, by the way, with the heart stuff that matters too. You're seeing the whole Joe Chill thing that's happening on the side of that. It all matters. I will get to because my three absolutes actually did shake up before I jump into that. Janelle, what did you think of Batman?
So, I mean, gosh, you guys have kind of said everything, but yes, it's beautiful. These absolute books are just, oh my God. I dare say these are some of my favorite reads, like, so far in my comic reading career. Like, and it's not just one. It's not just Batman. It's not just Superman. Like, it's not just Wonder Woman. It's all of them. But they are different. Like, they are so different, and what they're kind of like. Batman is completely like like, it's a small story, you know, like it's not a huge, like giant issue that they're like combating, but it's still, like Kobe said, at the heart of it, we're talking about this relationship with parents. And it's just really, really cool to see Batman in this different perspective and kind of like how he, like his beginnings. And I love that he was like a vampire. Like that was so
Yeah, he tried.
funny. It was like, it has really cool little moments like that that just it wasn't even necessary. Like, I didn't even need it, but like, I'm so glad I got it. It was just
Right.
interesting. And so like, are we sliding into Superman talk?
Yeah, go ahead, because you
yeah,
were
go
really
ahead.
excited for
Okay.
Superman.
I personally prefer Superman, because I don't know, for some reason, this last issue just like really moved me. I'm very much like into our planet and like saving the animals and saving nature and all of those things. So it just hits me a little bit more. And also, you know, like the dual parent relationship, like having them both really supportive and active in his life, like that's kind of where I come from. Like my parents always like had my back, like me, like that. And I don't know. I'm just really identifying with kid Superman, where he was kind of like teased and left out, and you know, kind of the underdog on his planet and stuff like that. So it's just it really moved me. I wish it was a little fresher in my mind, but I remember I was reading it and I was just kind of like gut punched on a lot of things. Oh, like little kid just coming in and like guns a-blazing, like attacking and like standing up for his mama, and his mama just like bossing
Oh
out.
my
Like,
God, yes.
That was crazy.
yes. So hot. Like,
Showed that to my wife, and I was like, if they get me, you better be at the jail.
dude,
Like,
it was
full
so
Terminator.
cool. It was just such a cool read, man. And like I said, both of them are just so good. So it's hard for me to even compare, but they are so different that you don't even really need to. Like they each are
Right.
filling a different like preference. Like I'm like, oh, this one is more of like this way, this one's more, and I don't know. I just love them. I love
Yeah. No, that's well said. All the books are so good for very different reasons. They're very different books, each of them.
Yeah.
But you already, I think they've already kind of crossed the Rubicon on, you know, cementing these characters, because all of these characters are ones I'm already invested in and would follow for years and want to have somewhere active for years.
Yeah.
There's already things I'm looking forward to. We've already talked like excitedly, like little kids, about how fun it's going to be to see each of these characters kind of build up in their world and then meet each other. And just those, even the Trinity just meeting each other at first and then expanding into like a Justice League in this reality, or whatever that becomes.
Crazy.
Like, I can't wait for the inevitable future event where this universe meets the other universe, and like Batman to Batman, like beefy Bruce and regular Bruce have to like
Oh my God,
hang
it's
out
gonna
for a
kill.
while, or just like battle each other. Like, that's going to be great. You know, Superman, Wonder Woman's going to be amazing. See how Wonder Woman look at other Wonder Woman and be like, oh, you were raised up here? Like, wow, okay. Like, yeah.
Where's your arm?
Yeah. I'd be like, what happened to you? Be like, I gave it to save Steve Trevor. What did you give? And be like, well, I took one of my hairs and made a baby. And be like, her just like looking at her, just like, right.
Oh my God, I didn't think
Feels.
about that. That's fantastic. Yeah.
Like, it's all going to be so great. So yeah, they've already done it. You know, I'm already so invested. Like Janelle said, like, you know, we get lists of things to read, and this is already. Your eyes hurting too, Matt? You look like your eyes are hurting. Said you squinted like your eyes are hurting. Oh my God,
no,
my eyes hurt so bad. My eyes are so bad.
Shout outs to our contact wearers.
No, I'm not even a contact wearer. This is just like today. It's just nuts.
The heater is blasting, yo. And by the way, we are in a snow globe. It is getting heavier and heavier.
Yeah, it's just I see one last spot on a manhole cover out there that's closing in fast.
I got nothing. I'm completely dumped on.
Well,
Pause.
It's snow dump day.
That is the second time in comic book this week that we have stumbled into the word dumping and and weird thing. Shout out to Charlie originally who did that. I have a new saying because in case I ever hang out with Cam and Mace, which is just like all pauses do before I say everything I'm about to say. All pauses do. Charlie originally. Shout out to Charlie who had like a funny workplace thing talking about something about a binge dump, and we were all like, "What?" We're like, "Charlie, please never say that again." But anyway, Absolute Universe, yes, amazing. And Matt, you want to talk about somebody who we were talking about the fun of crossing over with that other universe, and we might be there sooner than we think.
I know, man. If you've been reading, if you read Aquaman, which is making its DC All-In debut. This is the first ongoing since Absolute Power and everything like that. There are some really fun twists in there for Aquaman #1. It is written by Jeremy Adams, who has been doing amazing work over in Green Lantern with Hal Jordan, and taking that from a character that I was always kind of like, I'm not a Hal person. Everyone knows all you gotta do is look at the back here and see Kyle Rayner everywhere, right? Everyone knows I'm a Kyle Rayner person. But the work he has done with Jordan, like, I'm a fan. I'm a Hal Jordan fan, and it's been a long time since I've been a Hal Jordan fan, and it's been awesome. So now with John Timms, he's working with Aquaman, who I'm also a huge fan of already, Arthur Curry and everything, and they're doing some big things there. But you can go read all the details on Comic Book. We have a whole breakdown on how it happened, but there are already some interesting crossovers with the Absolute Universe and kind of our main timeline. And for people who remember, Booster Gold is also sitting, in the Absolute Universe too, from the end of All In. And so there's that thread already out there, and then it looks like Aquaman might have just crossed over as well, if that ending scene is to be believed. So we're already getting some mingling there of the two universes. There is no Absolute Aquaman right now, even confirmed. I'm sure it's coming, but it's not been confirmed or anything. So it is going to be really interesting to see what we get to see from his perspective. And same with characters like Booster and stuff, where it's different if Superman was headed over. Oh well, they're gonna maybe meet Superman. There is no alternate right now, at least revealed to us. So it'll be interesting to see if do we get characters introduced that way, where we get to see the Absolute Aquaman through this lens first, and then maybe get a series. It'll be interesting to see what they do here. I'm very intrigued from that perspective, but also the issue overall. I mean, I've been following Aquaman for a long time, and it's sometimes you get a lot of series that try and tackle one thing, right, of his, whether it's him as a hero, him as a king of Atlantis, him as a father, family man. Sometimes it's him as a Justice Leaguer. This book kind of attempts to deal with all of it, and also take a lot of it off the board, and really just focus on who the person behind all that is and what all that stuff means to him. And they did a great job. So you can read my full review on Comic Book if you want to hear me go on for a lot more words. But I will say, I did tease at the beginning that my lineup changed, because I agree with Janelle and Kofi in the fact that these books are separated by the tiniest of it really is the smallest little things are what I look at as this book being my favorite. I don't say better, they're all great, but my favorite over these other books, right? You're talking about the slimmest of margins here, and it's nitpicky stuff, right? Of what really resonates with me. So before, my list was very much Wonder Woman, Batman, and then Superman. But I said at the time, as we go further in Superman, it feels like that one could end up moving up the list pretty quickly as more issues come, because they're just doing some big things, and that stuff's going to crystallize as we move on. And with issue 3, that series moved all the way to the top spot for me. Absolute Superman is my favorite of the Absolute books. With that issue is so good at forming at changing how you look at a young Kal-El and changing all the stuff they did with Laura in the book is phenomenal. Even from issue 1. But issue 3, like all of that crystallizes and it's just this amazing picture. The stuff they did with Jor-El and Laura and Cal in that whole conversation about like him, where you learn the origins of him wanting to be a writer. You see where that stuff starts here, and like there's just so much they're building here. And Krypton is interesting again. Holy cow! I could stay on Krypton. I don't even need Earth. I'll do a whole book here. It's so fascinating, and you know what's gonna happen, you know, with that. And I'm like gonna be kind of bummed, you know, that once we leave and once it's gone, because it's like, oh man, I like it. I'd like seeing these characters interact with this world. And then they keep throwing teasers at you. What happened with Martha, right? What's going on there? Why does she have a picture of Clark there? And like, where's so much there? That the scale at which they're building, I think this series is going to be an absolute must own in trade.
The fact that he dropped in a Batman versus Superman Martha gag is, what's your name? My name is Martha. I fell out. I was like, oh no.
It's so good. So good. Yeah, I love that book. So yeah, it has rocketed to the top spot for me. And they're all great though. Batman, Absolute Batman number 4, fantastic issue. There hasn't been a dud. So very, very excited for the Absolute Universe. So yeah, that's comics. Any other comics you want to shout out, Kofi?
I'll shout out the X-Men raid on Gray Malkin. It's okay. First X-Men crossover. This whole thing is just okay. This is what y'all wanted to scrap Krakoa for? Really? Shout out to Gail Simone, who's doing a pretty good job, though. Like, I think they should put Gail Simone. Good. Yeah, I think they should put Gail Simone on doing stuff for the MCU, like helping to write some of those scripts, because she's a versatile writer. She's not just a comic writer. So, like, yeah, they should get her to help do the MCU X-Men and get the drama, because she understands that, like, the relationships, the drama. I want to make sure that's intact. So, you know, do that. But on the whole, this whole From the Ashes could be like go back in the fire.
You know, it's funny. Perfect segue, actually, to the next thing here, because I want to geek out about Marvel Rivals a bit. But what I will say is, if you have been playing Marvel Rivals, and I like to play, one of my mains is Magneto. I love Magneto. He's fantastic. Vanguard, everything. And he has so many Krakoa lines. He was definitely written when Krakoa was a thing. So the fact that, like, if you play Magneto and he interacts with other people, he's constantly talking about Krakoa and the island. Just brought me back a little bit. Made me happy. I don't know. Just made me happy. I was very nostalgic. I was like, oh, I miss Krakoa. Krakoa is so cool. Yes, I want to talk about Marvel Rivals in a minute, because today, ladies and gentlemen, right now, actually, season 1 is out. Season 0 has been active since the game launched, and season 1 is now available. It was technically available, I think, at 4 this morning. And introducing a brand new stage. We are introducing a new battle pass with oh my god, some amazing costumes. The whole season is actually themed around Dracula. It gave me very much Blood Hunt vibes. It's in this kind of vampire, like this taken over New York, decimated New York, and we're getting 4 new heroes in the season. We're getting 2 new heroes up front, and of course, with a certain Fantastic Four movie, it makes all the sense in the world that the Fantastic Four are the new heroes that are going to be available. We're kicking off the season with Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman. Let's start with Invisible Woman, because she is a strategist. I love playing a strategist or a Vanguard. She looks like so fun to play. She can heal, but she can do big attacks. She's got this bubble that she can pop up there. You can see it in action. She actually goes invisible if she hasn't attacked for a certain amount of time. And then they also have her ultimate as this thing right here, which her ultimate is like this giant like cone sphere, and will help heal people when she puts it up, and you can see it like people can't shoot into it. Now you can leave if you're a teammate of hers and go in and out of the thing, but you want to stay in because it's healing and everything like that. So she looks so fun to play. She's going to be she's available now. And then Reed Richards, who everyone knows I'm not a giant Reed Richards fan, but this might change my opinion. He looks bonkers. He looks so fun. He's a duelist. The stretchy arms and everything, you can actually slam two people together. But he can also he can kind of do a little bit of everything. He can bulk up at one point and become like this almost Hulk size version. And he can like right there where he can actually deflect. He can deflect shots from Iron Man. He can become this little bruiser tank thing for little spots of time. And then his ultimate is kind of insane. So he just like jumps up in the air. He gets kind of bulky and then he jumps up in the air like 5 or 6 times and does huge AoE damage. He looks so fun. So like while the game didn't need another duelist per se, it needs more strategists and vanguards. I am actually happy that like he looks really fun to play. And the costume designs for Marvel Rivals have killed so far. Also, they revealed 2 skins for the game. So for you fans like me who prefer the Maker, you can get the Maker costume in this game for Reed, and he even has different dialogue. It's fantastic. He looks awesome. And then for Invisible Woman, they made a Malice skin. And so now you can have dark versions of them, or you can have the kind of heroic versions of them. And Thing will be a Vanguard, and then Human Torch will be another duelist when they release later on in the season. So there's also a bunch of like, you can read the patch notes. We've got it covered on Comic Book, where you can go through all of the different buffs and nerfs of some characters got boosted. Wolverine got a little bit of a boost. Storm got a much needed boost. Some people got nerfed a little bit. Hawkeye didn't get nerfed enough. Just going to throw that out there, but hey, it's fine. It's fine. You can still headshot people from ridiculous range. It's absurd, but anyway, it's cool. So it's free to play. Now there were 33 characters, so now there's 35 characters to play. It's kind of insane. This game is super, super fun. So if you've been paying attention to it, you should hear. And then are you diving into this?
I've been waiting to ask you, is it a freemium game?
So it is straight up. I mean, you don't have to pay for any of the characters or any of their abilities. You do pay for skins. But
to like initial download, is it like a $60 game, or is it just free to download? No,
free to download.
And
you can unlock by playing the matches, and they have challenges, of course, and daily challenges. You can get enough to like unlock they have like a series of skins that aren't behind like the pay wall. The battle pass, the season 0 had 4 skins and a bunch of other things that you can unlock. The season 1 battle pass is like 10 skins, and it's like vampire Old West themed. Okay, there's a old man Logan looking character. Oh my god, he looks insane. The Rocket looks great. There's some great skins. The Moon Knight looks fantastic. But yeah, it's straight up free to play. Also, what's great is you can jump in now. The battle passes don't go away. They stick around. So you can still get the season 0 stuff. You just work on it on your own time. It doesn't go away after like a time limit. So that's nice. And none of the like abilities or anything like that are behind paywalls. There's no rotating thing. You have access to all the characters right off the bat.
All right, well, yeah, we're gonna be on this topic once I start jumping into this. There'll be a lot of trash talk and stuff. All right, and you're closing out the show with one more of your match.
Boy, WWE hit Netflix, made the debut on Netflix. Did anybody else watch? I'm curious.
I watched the highlights. I watched highlight clips actually because I was like, "How is this gonna go?"
I did not.
But it was crazy. Yeah, I saw The Rock open the show. I saw the Hulk Hogan. I sent you the video of the I was watching like a lot of just behind the scenes stuff. The Karrion Culkin CM Punk meeting we didn't know we needed. Like,
oh my god! Talk about the biggest pop of the night. Macaulay Culkin got the biggest pop of the night.
Oh yeah.
from anybody.
Oh, he nailed it with the hat reveal. Yeah, that was great.
Yeah. Everyone loves Macaulay Culkin. Yeah, it was boy, Hulk Hogan would have loved to have that kind of reception of Macaulay Culkin. That was rough. Yeah, it was the 3-hour Raw premiere. They really did it up. This felt like a PLE. I mean, this was loaded. This had matches that actually, according to reports, 2 of these matches, the CM Punk versus Seth Rollins and the Roman Reigns versus Solo Sikoa, were planned for pay-per-views. These were planned for like Rumble, WrestleMania level events, and they went, we'll put them on the Netflix debut. So I mean, they went all out. I mean, there were a number of celebrities. Vanessa Hudgens, huge fan, popped in. Everyone pops in for this. Travis Scott evidently was just like smoking live on air. Doing all kinds of stuff. They really brought out the red carpet for people. Gabriel Iglesias jumped in there, Fluffy. So they really tried to kind of hit all across. They also did a lot of video packages that kind of caught people up, recaps, because they really treated this like a, hey, if this is your first time watching wrestling because you're hearing all the buzz, if you've been away from wrestling for a little bit, come on back, see what you missed. They really treated this like this. And overall, it's a pretty fun show. It was a pretty fun show. Some of the matches kicked. We got Rhea Ripley being, champion again. The whole Liv Morgan feud is now done and complete. There's a lot of conflicting reports out there about like what was scrapped, what was not. There's rumors that like Becky Lynch's return was maybe supposed to happen at one point, but then that ended up not happening. Penta is going to debut on the next week's Raw. So like lots of back and forth. Everyone is going, hey, you could have put anything for the Hogan thing, because that was my gosh, if you have watched an uncomfortable segment of television, that is one of them. That was uncomfortable to watch. He got booed out of the building. Now, look, okay, we're not going to jump into politics and whatever and all that stuff. However, I feel like anyone could have seen that coming. You were in LA. And you brought this man out here to shill real American beer and in an LA crowd, and you thought that was gonna go well. I don't know. I question a little bit of judgment because that did not go well. And that was, one of the things obviously people were talking about. The Rock. It's so funny because and someone actually mentioned it in the chat. I think it was This Is Nerding that mentioned it in the chat, because Kofi used the term heel like twice during you were talking about during your cinema discussion. There was like a heel reference. And
no, it was during Star Wars Skeleton Crew.
Star Wars, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's so funny because there was a whole thing during the Rock's promo where he number one, he killed like 2 feuds. He very much came out as like, I own stock in TKO Rock. He was not kayfabe in story Rock. So like, dude buried his storyline with Cody by making a joke about it and talking directly to him. And, this man was beating Cody Rhodes to a bloody pulp outside of his tour bus a couple months ago. And now he's like, tell Mama Rhodes hi. Like, very much like, hey, we're outside of storyline. He gave the Ulafala to Roman Reigns. There was no kind of giant tease of like, I'm coming for that at some point or whatever. This was very much like The Rock is here to be The Rock and be a star, right? And court this new crowd. But Triple H ended up, he used all these terms in his promo. He was like, talking about whether something's a work or whether something's a shoot or heel and face. And Triple H mentioned that in the press conference of like how those terms, those are wrestling centric terms, right? But they have become so mainstream. Like they've people who don't watch wrestling know what those words mean. And they've become so like just commonplace that like, he was very much talking about like, hey, we're not hiding that, right? Like we've kind of embraced that, and we know people understand it. It's like one of those things where we used to talk about like multiverse things and like comic movies and like how could the mainstream audience get that? And as we've clearly seen, they're perfectly fine with it, right? They got it. They know there can be 2 of some people in a universe, right? So it's just really interesting to see that. And I thought this podcast was a perfect example of that, because I use that all the time. I'm always talking about face and heels. That's how I describe villains and heroes in comics, because it's just, that's where I grew up, right? It was a big turnout. There's some conflating takes on like how well it did. WWE released a report that they released kind of their official press release that it was what do we got, 4.9 million live +1 views Raw on Netflix. And then initial reports kind of came out that it was a little bit, I think it took like a 12% dip from where the Raw premiere was on USA Network last year, as far as just like straight up live numbers, right? So there's a little bit of disagreement there, but what I will say is that Netflix pulled off the stream without a hitch. There wasn't at least on my side, and I was watching online for, hey, this thing, I can't watch it or whatever. There were no breakdowns. That thing was crisp. The stream held. We did not have another Jake Paul, Mike Tyson situation where people couldn't watch it. It looks like they were prepared, and they knocked that out of the park. It was a pretty big splashy thing, and I think it did what they were hoping as far as attention goes, because you have a lot of people who don't regularly watch wrestling talking about WWE on Netflix. My mom was like, I heard about the Netflix debut. She refers to my covering of wrestling as, oh, hey, are you watching your wrestling guys? That's the level she thinks about my covering of wrestling, right? Are you playing with your wrestling guys? You watching your wrestling guys? And she was even like, oh, I heard about Netflix on Raw. So to me, that's what you want, right? So yeah, it was interesting. So they're queuing up for another big. This is going to be they're going to treat these episodes like pretty big deals, probably for the next at least month, to really kind of build up steam. But yeah, so that is the craziness that was Raw on Netflix, and we're just going to get more of it. And then there's a 3-hour SmackDown tonight, all leading up to the Royal Rumble, which your boy will be covering live here from Indianapolis. So yeah, big stuff.
All right. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, everybody. This is Comic Book Nation, the only show that does it all for geek culture, the official podcast of comicbook.com. You can find us on all your favorite podcast platforms, where we have now 7 seasons of show. So go back and listen to all the classic episodes when we were young kids, just starting out in this podcasting game. And join us when you're listening to all that in next week, where hopefully things won't be burning or buried under snow, and we'll be back out and getting into the movies of the year. Things are going to start ramping up pretty fast. We are about a month out from Captain America Brave New World, possibly shaking up the MCU. So lots going to be coming at us fast. We are going to get out of here. Matt, Janelle, thank you for joining me. Yeah. Everybody have a good week. If you are snowed in, be sure to check out some good content. And we'll see you next week. Peace.
This is